is a Work, Play, Live presentation brought to life through artificial intelligence. Experience the story.
Before there were streets, before there were borders, before there was a city, there was water. At the edge of Canada's largest city lies a freshwater giant, Lake Ontario, shaping where Toronto stands, how it grew, and why it exists at all. For thousands of years, these waters provided food, travel, and connection. They shaped ecosystems, guided movement, and sustained human life long before the first foundations were laid. For the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Lake Ontario was never just water. It was and remains a living presence, sacred, powerful, essential. As settlers arrived, the lake became Toronto's gateway to the world, carrying people, goods, and ambition. The shoreline transformed and the city grew outward from the water. But every relationship leaves a trace. As Toronto expanded, the lake absorbed the cost: pollution, alteration, neglect. Today, the future of this city and the fate of its water are inseparable. Lake Ontario is more than a body of water. It is part of an ancient system, shaped by glaciers more than 10,000 years ago. As the ice retreated, it carved basins that became the Great Lakes, creating one of the largest freshwater systems on Earth. Though it is the smallest of the Great Lakes by surface area, Lake Ontario is one of the deepest. In places, its basin lies below sea level, a reminder of the immense weight that once pressed this land down. Even now, the lake continues its work. Erosion reshapes the shoreline grain by grain, year after year. Lake Ontario is not a backdrop. It is a living geological system, still responding to gravity, climate, and time. Long before the first buildings appeared on its shores, people came to this water, drawn by its power, its resources, and its promise. Before the lake had a name on a map, it was already known. For thousands of years, people lived along these shores, guided by the rhythms of the water. The lake sustained life. It provided food, fresh water, and pathways for travel, linking communities across vast distances. Indigenous nations, including the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe, developed deep relationships with the lake. Water was not a resource to be owned. It was a living presence to be respected. Fishing, hunting, and harvesting followed the season. Knowledge was passed down through generations. When to fish, where to travel, how to live in balance with the land and water. Canoes moved silently across these waters, turning Lake Ontario into a natural highway. Trade, communication, and cultural exchange flowed along the lake's surface. The relationship was spiritual as much as practical. Water was honoured through ceremony, story, and tradition, recognised as essential to life itself. For thousands of years, this balance endured. Then, new people arrived, bringing unfamiliar tools, ideas, and ambitions. The lake remained the same, but the human story along its shores was about to change forever. The arrival of Europeans marked the beginning of a new era, one of settlement, conflict and transformation. When Europeans first reached these shores, they arrived not at a city, but at a lake that already carried thousands of years of human history. For early explorers and settlers, Lake Ontario was not a boundary. It was a gateway, an entry point into the interior of a vast continent. Strategic control of the lake meant control of trade, movement and power.
And our land has provided abundance.
Forts were built along the shoreline, including Fort York, establishing a permanent European presence. These structures were not just defensive, they were symbols of occupation, reshaping the relationship between land, water and people.
Excellent quality pelts. We're glad you're pleased. Would you like to see more? Perhaps another time. The ships are waiting.
What began as a small settlement grew steadily. Trade routes expanded, goods moved across the lake, timber, furs, supplies, binding the settlement's survival to the water. Lake Ontario became a corridor of commerce and conflict. Its waters carried ambition, opportunity and tension. Over time, the settlement transformed. The shoreline was reshaped, marshes were filled, harbours expanded. The city we now know as Toronto emerged, built outward from the lake. The lake that once sustained Indigenous communities now powered a growing colonial city. Its role was changing, but its importance was not.
Steady, don't let it drift. Copy that, pushing the stern.
As Toronto grew, Lake Ontario became more than a route or a resource. It became the engine driving the city's economy. As Toronto expanded, Lake Ontario took on a new role. No longer just a route of arrival, it became the engine that powered the city's growth. Through its waters moved raw materials, manufactured goods and fuel, linking Toronto to regional and global markets. The harbour became a focal point of activity. Industry clustered along the shoreline, transforming the water's edge into a zone of constant motion and labour. These details tell a quieter story of work done daily, often unseen, sustaining the city beyond the skyline. The lake also connected communities. Ferries, service vessels and passenger boats move people as efficiently as goods, integrating the lake into everyday urban life. Beneath the surface, Lake Ontario provides something even more essential. It supplies drinking water to millions, quietly sustaining the city day after day. The relationship is reciprocal. The city depends on the lake, and the lake bears the imprint of the city's demands. Economic growth brought opportunity, but also pressure, and over time, the costs of that growth became impossible to ignore. Pollution, climate change, and environmental strain would test the lake's resilience.
Keep up! We need
Lake
to feed the
Ontario
clan.
has endured ice ages, floods, and centuries of change. But the pressures it faces today are different, faster, heavier, and driven by human activity. Climate change has altered the lake's behaviour. Stronger storms and fluctuating water levels place increasing stress on shorelines built for a more stable past. Erosion accelerates where natural shorelines were replaced by development. What once absorbed the lake's movement now resists it and slowly gives way. Pollution tells another story. Decades of industrial waste, plastic and runoff have left lasting marks, many of them invisible until they accumulate. What flows into the lake reflects the life of the city itself. Rain carries oil, chemicals and waste from streets directly into the water. The lake remains a vital ecosystem. Fish, birds and plant life depend on its health, even as their habitats are reshaped or reduced. The challenges facing Lake Ontario are inseparable from the city beside it. The lake absorbs the consequences of urban life, often without pause or recognition. Yet the story is not only one of damage. Awareness has grown, and with it, efforts to protect what remains essential. The future of Lake Ontario now depends on choices being made today. In recent decades, awareness has grown. Communities, scientists and policymakers have begun to recognise what is at stake. Along parts of the shoreline, restoration has replaced industry. Green spaces now buffer the lake, allowing it to breathe where concrete once pressed tight. Policies regulating pollution, water quality and shoreline development have helped stabilise the lake's health. Progress is real, but fragile. Millions depend on this water every day, often without realising it. Drinking water, climate moderation, ecosystems. The lake supports life quietly without recognition. The future of Lake Ontario is inseparable from the future of Toronto. What happens on land will always shape what happens in the water. The question is no longer whether the lake can endure. It is whether we choose to protect what has sustained us for generations. The story of Lake Ontario is not finished. It continues with us. If this documentary has informed you, if it has helped you see Lake Ontario and Toronto through a deeper lens, you can support this work directly. Contributions through Buy Me a Coffee help fund future research, filming and independent storytelling. Independent documentaries rely on community support, not corporations. Every contribution helps keep this project accessible, detailed and free from outside influence. For those who want to go further, we're also offering exclusive creative bundles drawn directly from this documentary. The image bundle includes high-resolution generated stills created specifically for this documentary cinematic visuals, suitable for creative, educational and storytelling use. The video clip bundle offers curated cinematic footage, perfect for documentaries, presentations, background visuals or future projects. The soundtrack bundle includes original ambient audio. Your support helps this story continue, not just as a film, but as a shared resource. And now we return to the lake. Where a city meets water, the future is written. Water remembers. Long after borders shift and cities change, the lake remains. It has witnessed ice retreat, forests rise and people arrive. It has carried trade, sustained life and absorbed the weight of progress. Toronto stands because the lake allowed it to. Every glass of water, every shoreline road, every reflection in the harbour traces back here. The lake asks for little, only space, respect, time. The future of Lake Ontario is not separate from our own. What we take from it and what we give back will define what remains. Where the city meets the lake, the story continues, not in words, but in choices.